I'm Arthur Petropoulos, the managing partner here at Hillview Partners. We're a middle market, lower middle market, M&A and capital advisory firm. Help companies sell themselves, help companies secure capital, typically those generating $1 to $10 million in EBITDA or pre-tax profit. We operate globally, done over $1 billion of transactions, over 150 engagements in our decade of business. And today, what we want to talk about is the 5 levels of team members. And so oftentimes the question comes to us because when we think of a business, we typically break it down into people, process, and product, or service or offering, but with each of these being equally component within a business. And so the question comes, how do we know when we have good people, or how do we evaluate people? What are the different tiers of qualification, if you will, within a business that determines the importance or how vital an individual is within the business? And unlike certain processes within a business, sales, things of that nature, it's very difficult to have quantified metrics for the evaluation of individual contributors or team members of a business. It's one of those things where it kind of feels right or it doesn't, but how do you put your finger on it? And so in today's video, we've put some thought into stratifying this into 5 tiers of team members, all of which are important, all of which are valuable, but certainly as a team member progresses up this ladder, the value of them to the organization becomes that much more imperative. And from our perspective and our experience of working with all these different types of companies, when we're looking at the organizational chart, when we're looking at how different people act, behave within the business, these are some of the things that we look at. And so for purposes of this tiers, we want to work through the analogy, if you will, of a fire. Right? There is a fire in the business. Think of that as an analogy for a problem, an issue, an objective. Doesn't even have to be negative, but something that needs to be tackled within the business. How people deal with the fire within the company is going to dictate where they are on that tier of quality in contributing to the company. So stick with us. But the first idea here is someone who spots a fire, right? So they're looking around and they say, hey, there's a fire there. Now there's value to that because there are people within a business that the whole thing could be burning down, and so long as they can get out by 5 o'clock on a Friday, or whatever the virtual equivalent of that is in Zoom world today, but there's definitely that. And so if someone does at least acknowledge this is the objective, this is the issue, there's value in that. Now moving to the next tier are those that spot the issue and also suggest how one may want to put out the fire. And so they say, hey, there's a fire there. Maybe we should get a fire extinguisher. Now again, stops short of putting out the fire, and it gives you a clue as to what the next tier is going to be, but not only spots a problem, spots an issue, elucidates, brings light to an objective, but also gives a suggestion as to how that can be accomplished, mitigated, etc. And so that is valuable and that's helpful. We always say in our business, if you spot one problem, give us 3 potential solutions. And so there's value to that and it's something to look out for. Now tier number 3, as we hinted to, are those that spot the fire, suggest how to put out the fire, and even do it, right? So someone sees a fire and they say, hey, there's a fire there. Perhaps we should put it out with a fire extinguisher. Here is a fire extinguisher. I'm going to put out the fire. Now that's wonderful because it saves iterations of decision making, and you don't want people running vigilante within a business. However, you do want them to suggest solutions, and then whether you iterate back to them what the solution or the path should be, or they just do it themselves, but someone who's capable of mitigating the problem, of accomplishing the objective, there's value there. And so think of those as the first 3 tiers. Now tier number 4 takes it a step further into say how to avoid more fires from happening in the future. And so they spot fires, they suggest how to put out the fires, they put out fires themselves, and then they say, you know what, in the future we should do A, B, and C to avoid fires in the first place. And so the idea being, not only are they solving the problems or accomplishing the objectives, being able to spot them, but they're also thinking towards the future of how do we avoid things in the future? How do things get not bad in the future? How do we avoid issues in the future? And so that's tier number 4. And tier number 5, which is rare, but when you find it, you know it, and you want to hold on to it as long as you can, is someone that not only figures out how to avoid bad in the future, but figures out how to find good in the future. And those are not the same thing as much as they have somewhat of a Venn diagram element to them. And so let's walk through the 5 tiers and shed some more light on that 5th element. But you have spotting the issue, you have thinking of ways or suggesting ways to solve the issue or accomplish the objective. You have those that actually do accomplish the objective or solve the issue. Then you have those that say we can avoid problems, avoid issues by doing these things in the future. But then I guess number 5 would be the equivalent of those that suggest ways to put out the fire and find ways of getting more water or getting more fire extinguishers to do that. And so not only looking at how do you protect the downside of a situation, but how do you increase the upside? And so not just how do we avoid more fires in the future, but how do we become not just durable, but play offense in a way? And so what we distinguish, and it can be a little bit nuanced between those tier 4 and tier 5 people, are they're not just figuring out how to make the business less fragile or more durable, but they're actually figuring out how to play offense, how to win more, not just how not to lose. And so that's elite level. Those are people that are worth their weight in gold. You don't have tons of them, but when you do, you want to retain them as long as possible. And so the ideal teammates to have within a company are very difficult to define, yet are very readily tangible when you have it in front of you. We tried to put some thought into what's a simple analogy, what are the simple tiers to evaluate that when we're looking at businesses, and that's really it. If there's a fire, who points it out? Who suggests how it should be put out? Who actually puts it out? Who suggests we can avoid more fires in the future? And who not only suggests we can avoid more fires in the future, but further the business to have more resources to deal with fires, even in their limited or decreasing state. So that's the thought for today. The 5 tiers of team members. From our experience, these are them. Hope the week continues to go well for everyone. Keep pushing forward. God bless. We'll see everyone next time.